Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT Podcast here on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell. Alongside me, as always, my good friends Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. Today on the rundown, we got a lot to get into. NBA action off-season, NHL acquisitions, John Tavares going to the Maple Leafs, top story of the day, MLB, as always, and of course, we got to talk about some Illinois basketball. Cale, go ahead and take it away.
All right, guys, so let's start off with the NBA. Big elephant in the room. DeMarcus Boogie Cousins signs a $5.3 million veterans minimum salary with the Golden State Warriors. But the thing with that is he's not expected to be back on the court until January. What do you guys got?
I think that's another big signing for the Warriors. It kind of drives me nuts, actually. When LeBron went to Miami, there was a huge deal. Chris Paul tried to go to the Lakers. They shut it down because they would have too many stars on one team. I don't really know how this doesn't fall in the same category. So it really takes all the competition out of the game. The Warriors have won 3 of the last 4. They just signed another big guy to fill a hole that they didn't have. Another good player that has been paid a lot of money because he's played very well throughout his time in the league. But the one thing that is good about this is they paid him the veterans minimum. Good for Boogie. He gets a year to prove himself. Not being on the court till January, he gets himself a chance. He pretty much gets a free ring in the process, and the Warriors get a good big out of it that can help them late in the season, help rest some guys, give them some good minutes off the bench, and eventually start when they get to the playoffs. So they get to fill in a small hole, like I said, and Boogie gets a free ring out of it. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is probably the best thing that could have happened if you're Golden State. If you're not, well, that really sucks.
Sorry.
Really sorry, because the competition in the NBA now, let's face it, I mean, it was tough beforehand with Kevin Durant going there, and they had, the quote big 4. Now that you have a big 5 come January, February, whenever DeMarcus decides to come back, you might as well kiss the rest of the regular season goodbye. But with that said, we do have to keep in mind that he does have to prove himself coming back off this Achilles injury. The Achilles, we've seen it happen with Kobe, we've seen it happen with Elton Brand, countless other players. They have not come back the same way. But this is a guy that was in his prime. When he was playing with Anthony Davis in New Orleans, they had a 6-game winning streak, strung together a few games where they looked really good, coming down the second stretch of the season after the All-Star break, or right before the All-Star break, And then this happens to him. The Pelicans end up playing better without Boogie, and then come playoff time, Anthony Davis goes off. Not to mention Drew Holiday in the process, as well as Rajon Rondo and those guys. I think for the Warriors, this, like you said, they're filling a hole that teams would try to exploit, and we saw the Pelicans try to do that in the playoffs in the second round, which they did end up taking a game from them without Cousins in the lineup. With that said, this is not looking good for the rest of the NBA, and it's probably over. If you want to go ahead and crown them champs right now, I wouldn't blame you, but they still got to play 82 games.
If it works for the Warriors, great, because they got him for $5 million, which sounds like a lot of money to me, but in the NBA, that's not really nothing. So if it works, great. They got it super cheap. If it doesn't work, great. See you later.
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever seen 5 All-Stars essentially on one team.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if you want to consider Draymond Green an All-Star because he's on a winning team and in a winning situation, that's fair to say. I never thought that he was a top-tier All-Star.
I agree with you on that. The fact that Draymond Green is on Golden State is the reason why he's an All-Star.
Put him on the Heat, and he's not the same guy.
Put him on the Heat, put him in Chicago, put him on the Timberwolves. He's not an All-Star. Nothing's going to happen. He's just your average middle-of-the-road player.
So. Right, but I think in that system, that's where he has shined and been able to become a, quote, All-Star. We know that he's had his issues and still has his issues, but I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's a very good player, but like you said, as an All-Star, I just don't see him claiming that status and that holding true anywhere else outside of Golden State, like you said.
Moving on, though, real quick, let's go to the Lakers. They're having some pretty big off-season moves here. They signed Rajon Rondo for a $9 million deal. I just want to touch on something real quick with Rondo and with the Stevenson signing in L.A. To me, it seems like Magic's putting all these guys around LeBron that just can't stand him. It's been proven that Rajon and Lance both have on-court issues with LeBron. There's a bunch of pictures floating around of a specific shirt from Barstool Sports, that's got some pretty good stuff on there on the shirt about LeBron. But, and the fact that Lance Stevenson, everybody knows what he does in the playoffs. So, yeah.
The LeBron whisperer.
Yeah. So, what do you guys feel about Magic putting all of these players around LeBron that potentially don't care for him too much?
Well, this is something that I've seen a lot on other talk shows. I've seen it on Undisputed, other shows on FS1 and ESPN and stuff like that. And what people try to say is Magic is putting all these guys around LeBron that, like you said, can't stand him, but also are proven in this league. They've been around. JaVale McGee is a guy that has resurrected his career, and he did that in Golden State. Like we said on other shows, he's been on Shaqtin' a Fool countless times, and he's gone head-to-head with Shaq before, which, that's funny to watch if you got free time.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to go look that up on YouTube. That's a guy that's been proven. Rondo, this is a guy that's won a championship, been to the finals multiple times, been in the playoffs multiple times, played with guys like Paul Pierce and KG, other veterans. He played with DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento and averaged, almost a triple-double for a season. So this is a guy that's proven himself. Not to mention Lance, like I said, it's a guy that's been proven because when we want to forget it so soon, but when he was with Indiana and Paul George and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Roy Hibbert. Remember when he was a Defensive of the Year caliber player? Danny Granger, even, he's out of the league now. When that team was a thing with George Hill, and now we see George Hill struggling to even stay in the league in Cleveland. I mean, is he still a starting point guard? I guess that's a story for a different day. But that team, with Lance there and them going to the Eastern Conference Finals, fighting against LeBron, they did it 2 years back-to-back, even went Game 7 one year. I think it was 2013. He's a guy that's been proven, and I think they're just trying to put a bunch of veterans around LeBron that know what they're doing, that are able to listen and kind of adhere to what he wants to do.
Well, I think you kind of hit it there. They're just putting older guys, veteran guys that have been in the league around LeBron. I don't really think they care who it is at this point. I think they're just trying to get the best available, one at every position, just to throw them around and kind of make a team around LeBron. Now, I'm not going to say Magic's not the one pulling the strings, but I think if you think Magic is the one making all these decisions, I'm willing to put a pretty hefty bet out there that LeBron said, hey, go get this guy and fill in this spot. I do think Magic's making some of those decisions, but I think LeBron has a lot to do with this as well.
Ultimately, Magic's signing the paychecks.
Right.
Absolutely. But there's no doubt in my mind that LeBron has his hand in every move that's been made so far.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I know these guys don't like LeBron, but at this point, I don't really think LeBron gives a crap.
Yeah.
I think he's just trying to get himself some help.
He signed with the Western Conference. He obviously is up for the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So what does this mean for Lonzo Ball? The thing about Lonzo, with the Rajon signing, anything that happens with Lonzo, you got LeVar, which LeVar is clinically insane. We all know that.
Yeah.
But this is what LeVar said about Rajon Rondo, a guy who has proven himself in the league. This is a quote coming from LeVar Ball saying that don't mean nothing. Ball said out of L.A., just another teammate, that's all a little backup. He's calling Rajon Rondo backup to Lonzo Ball. That's just unfathomable. It's insane. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. He's calling Rajon Rondo backup to Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball is nothing in this league compared to Rajon Rondo.
Not yet. Absolutely, you're right. Excuse me. You're right, definitely. Rondo is a guy, like I said before, has been proven. Excuse me again. Something stuck in the throat there. But Rajon Rondo is a guy that's been proven in this league over and over again. He did have his little stint in Dallas where there was an issue with Mark Cuban and questioning his effort, which I think everyone could see that he really wasn't giving it his all, but it wasn't a playoff team at the time. But Rondo, like I said, is a guy that's been proven. Lonzo Ball, he's coming off his rookie season. He didn't shoot the ball all that well from the three-point line, from the free throw line, and he missed over 20 games this season.
What did he shoot, like less than 30% from the three-point line?
I think it was right at 30%.
Right at 30?
Yeah, it was pretty atrocious. And there was at one stint he was less than 25%.
So coming off of that, Rajon, we know he doesn't like to shoot very much, but he likes to dribble drive, and he can set players up like LeBron. He's amazing at that. His court vision is phenomenal. Lonzo Ball doesn't have any of those capabilities yet as of right now.
You're right, yes.
I don't think he will ever, in my opinion, I don't think he'll ever build those capabilities with his dad in the background trying to dictate every move he's going to make. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Everybody knows that I hate LeVar Ball. So
I agree.
I think he's got incredible potential. I think he's got the wherewithal to do Rajon Rondo type things. But like you said, with LeVar trying to pull the strings, with that kind of pressure just on his back all the time, I don't think he can ever get that. Now, with Rondo coming to the Lakers, I think this could actually be really good for Lonzo. Whether that'll last or not, we'll get to that in a minute. But I think this moves Ball to the bench. I think it'll be a better role for him. Come in, play a little bit less minutes, get a shot to just make some plays happen when they need them to happen, just because he'll get a play against, well, not slightly less talented guys, some of the other backups coming in just to fill in some space and some time. But I think it'll give Ball a bench role, and I think it'll be a lot better for him while he's still developing early in the league.
Absolutely. I think this is an opportunity for Lonzo to learn from Rajon Rondo, a savvy veteran that similar positions too. We know that they're both great playmakers. They both have great court vision. This would be a time for him to just kind of soak up that information and kind of accept and kind of just fit into that backup role. And if he can do that moving forward, I think that'll do wonders for his career. And like you said, try to get some separation between him and his father.
All right, guys, so let's move on to Dwight Howard. This one here, I can feel the tension in the room already with you two. We got one super fan of Dwight Howard and one that does not like Dwight Howard at all. But he just signed.
Not that I hate him, I just think he's soft.
We're going to try to leave that conversation alone for another day. We got him signing with Washington to replace Gortat after their buyout with the Nets. How do you think this will fare for the Wizards out in the East? Do you think it'll help, or do you think it'll be a bigger detriment than anything else?
I think replacing Gortat is... I mean, this is a guy that had issues with John Wall throughout the season, even going back 2 years ago with the whole going back and forth on Twitter, right? They had that little feud. There was something that came out. Someone reported that Gortat thought John Wall was not giving all of his effort, or he was being too selfish. He's not a team player. And then we had John Wall go out with an injury, and the team was actually playing better basketball. But we all know that when you have a superstar if you want to call him a superstar in John Wall, he's might be a superstar in the East. Obviously a top 3-point guard in the East, if that. But with that said, you have that feud going on there. He's gone. He's now in Los Angeles. And now that they bring in Dwight Howard, this is a guy that's hopped around for the last 3 seasons, played for the Hawks, the Hornets, thought we was going to see him in Brooklyn, and now he gets his buyout, and now he signs a minimum contract with Washington. I think this is going to be a great pick-and-roll duo if Dwight can accept the role and know his limitations as a player now. If he can't do that, it's going to be a similar situation to Charlotte. It's going to be a similar situation to Atlanta, and this team's not really going to go anywhere. I still think they're going to be a playoff team because you have a dynamic backcourt of John Wall and Bradley Beal, along with great role players like Kelly Oubre. You have Otto Porter. Even Satoransky off the bench, I think, is a great backup point guard. But with that said, and they did trade for Austin Rivers in the Gortat trade. I can't forget about that. So that's another guy that can come off the bench. But Dwight, if he can learn to accept his limitations as a player right now, I think he'll do great.
Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Dwight Howard can play a very big role in this offense, but he has to learn what that role is. Now, signing for the veterans minimum, I think that helps get himself out of his own head. He'll realize that he's not the big all-star, great super player that he once was. He's not Superman anymore.
He's getting older.
Yeah, and I
stop age.
I think that's exactly what it is, and I think it'll help him to learn his role a little bit. And I think he can be really good with the Wizards, especially in the East, which is a very weak conference now. I think they've got a very good chance at finishing 5 seed, 4 seed. They can finish very well with Dwight Howard, and he's so much of a better fit than Gortat. I think him and John Wall will work really well together.
For sure. So let's just kind of move on to the Kings, because this is a big one. This one involves our local Chicago team with the Bulls. The Kings are showing a lot of interest in restricted free agent Zach LaVine. Should they match their offer at any time? Keep in mind, if Gary Paxton wants to get rid of Zach LaVine, he should get a lot in return for this. Zach LaVine is a decent player. He's a high flyer. He can throw down. That's
right.
just I don't know. If the Bulls want to do something here, they better get a lot in return.
Well, that's the thing is him being a free agent, they will have the cap space to be able to sign other players. But who all is left on the market now that LA has pretty much soaked up 4 free agents?
Right.
Rondo previously played for the Bulls. I feel that maybe Lance could have been an interesting fit on the team, or anyone else that the Lakers are interested in signing. Right. We've also had guys re-sign with their teams. But as far as the Bulls are concerned with Zach LaVine, this is a guy, like you said, he's a high flyer. He's got a high motor. Really, I thought was a dynamic duo with Chris Dunn in the backcourt. Chris Dunn being a defensive-orientated guy. We know he struggled on the offensive end of things, but I think he's starting to come around. With Zach LaVine paired up next to him, I feel like this could be a really nice combination, but you have guys like Valentine that could get some more playing time that are still developing. We see him now in the summer league that's going on. But if the money's right, I think that they should go ahead and match it. But if the Kings are going to throw $25 million at him, especially for 4 or 5 years, I don't think that's money that you can tie up right now with this team.
What does the Kings have? Why do they have interest in Zach LaVine? They have Buddy Hyde. They just got Bagley. They got De'Aaron Fox. Why with those three young guys? Why would they want somebody that's injury prone? That's been proven to have problems with injuries. I just don't understand why they would feel like they want Zach LaVine on their roster.
Okay, let me just say this. We've seen the Kings make interesting moves in the past, and that's because their owner is prone to making interesting decisions, to say the least. Okay, he's a guy that when they traded for Buddy Hield and when they sent DeMarcus Cousins to New Orleans a couple years ago, he said that he sees Buddy Hield as having Steph Curry potential. I don't think you see anyone else saying that Buddy Hield has Steph Curry potential.
That's a hot take.
This is one of the things, and there's no disrespect to him, but Steph Curry is probably a one-in-a-generation type player. And Buddy Hield, he's not. I like Buddy. He's a good complementary piece.
Yeah. And
putting him alongside De'Aaron Fox, and they have Marvin Bagley that they just drafted. I think Willie Cauley-Stein is a nice piece. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they're going to handle the Scalabissiere signing or a situation that they're in right now. But with that said, I mean, if they want to bring in Zach for maybe an it factor, putting him alongside De'Aaron Fox, 2 guys that aren't known for shooting 3-pointers, although LaVine is very capable of shooting 3-pointers, it is very interesting, and I would scratch my head at it.
Should the Bulls match any offer? No. Should they match some offers? Yes. I think you said it right. If the money's right, they should match it and keep this guy. As you said, Cale, he's a little injury prone. He only played 24 games this year. He's not super great on the stat lines. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, almost 40% from the field, 81% free throws, and 1 steal and 2 turnovers a game. So he handles the ball well. He's a high flyer, high motor, good potential, but he's not a superstar or an all-star yet. So I think they should keep him. He's got great potential, like I said, but he's not there yet. I think he still needs some time to develop. If we could keep him, that'd be great. I would love to see him in Chicago still, putting on for what he's got, but he needs to get healthy, and we need to get him all figured out. But he is good back in the backcourt with Chris Dunn and whatnot. It's a good tag team between the 2 of them. He definitely helps with the young rebuild that we're kind of going for right now.
I would like to see them keep him just because they drafted Wendell Carter Jr. and they already have Lauri Markkanen. So you have your 1-2 punch on the blocks. If you bring him back with Chris Dunn, I think you're looking at a team that, especially in the East, could potentially be on the verge of making the playoffs. But again, that all depends on what they're willing to do and how quickly these guys use their potential and can reach their potential and just get better. And obviously that comes with time. But I do want to say him coming back, Zach LaVine that is, coming back from the ACL injury that he suffered before the trade for Jimmy Butler that the Timberwolves made, I think he's done great. Like you said, he only played 20-something games this season. But with that small sample size, I think he's done a great job in showing that he can still get off the floor and have that bounce and throw down like he was able to before. Although it is a little slower than we've seen. It's not as quick of a step, but maybe that will come with time.
Well, and it got better as he progressed through the end of the season. He came back a little bit through, and then as we got closer to the end of the season, he definitely picked up, and you could see that coming back.
You got to think too. You're coming off an ACL injury. You're gonna be a little fragile on that, because your knees are your moneymaker in the NBA. So you got to take care of the knees, even though he did show potential of being a high flyer. He still has it, and it did come back. But moving on to Damian Lillard, he's been tweeting out saying that he wants to get out and potentially play with LeBron in LA. Should the Blazers even trade him? I mean, he's their franchise guy. So
this is actually where I wanted to talk about Lonzo Ball. I think the Blazers should trade him. I think they can get a lot for him. He's still got 3 years on his contract. So I think they can get a lot out of LA, and I think Ball plays a factor in that. Is he going to want to leave LA and go to Portland? Probably not. Is LeVar going to hate it? Probably. But I think Ball and Ingram can be a good trade piece in this scenario, and it gets Lillard what he wants. It gets the Blazers a bunch of young guys that they can start, that they can throw in and develop and become a good team a few years down the road, because they've got to know that they don't really have that great of a chance in the Western Conference this year. But I think the Blazers should consider trading it, because unlike Kawhi Leonard, this is his last year on his deal, they can't get much for that, like the Spurs. I think that the Blazers have a good chance of getting a lot out of Lillard. So
this is a tweet sent to Damian Lillard, and it says, if the Blazers traded you to the Lakers to help LeBron, would you be happy? He tweeted back and said, I'm typically a happy camper. So that's that dead indication right there, that he wants to go.
Right. It's the subtlety in the tweet there, or in the reply, I should say. This was something that he had done, kind of like a Q&A for fans to send in questions and ask him, just anything that was on their mind. Obviously, this fan wanted to know, would you be happy playing in LA? And with that response saying, I'm typically a happy camper, that pretty much tells me that I'm happy with any situation that involves LeBron James. Yeah. And I would be too, because we've seen him be successful in Cleveland with Kyrie Irving and getting to the finals and winning a championship ultimately, right, in 3 years.
LeBron and anybody around him is the best player in the league, so you just got to think LeBron's going to make anybody around him better at any point in time, just like Jordan did. So
right, and they're very similar in that aspect. I think, though, with Damian Lillard, he's very similar to Kyrie Irving in the way that they play their games. I think Kyrie obviously has a better handle. I think Damian, I don't know if he's a better shooter, but I think they're almost on the same level. They're pretty much, like I said, they're pretty much the same player. Just I think Kyrie might be a little bit better. Maybe that has to do with him playing in the Eastern Conference. Maybe that has to do with him being a little bit more flashy. I know they're both not afraid of the moment, but I've seen Damian Lillard time and time again deliver in clutch time. Right, oh, yeah. We know in the fourth quarter that's Dame time. All right, we see him pull out the watch. He points to his wrist. Okay, time and time again we see it not only in the regular season, even in the playoffs. Now, what happened this year in getting swept by New Orleans when you have home court advantage and you're the 3 seed in the Western Conference is beyond me. Maybe this wasn't an anomaly, maybe it was a fluke, but I would love to see, like you touched on, Tyson, the Lakers maybe include a package of maybe Lonzo Ball, a first-round pick, and Brandon Ingram for Damian Lillard. I think this would be great for the Blazers, like you said. They have a couple of young guys, Zach Collins and Caleb Swanigan. We know that they lost Ed Davis, and then if they pair those guys up with Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball, this could be great building blocks for them moving forward. While in the meantime, LeBron wants to win now. Damian wants to win now. He's never been out of the second round of the playoffs. So this would be great for both of them and possibly give them any chance to get past the Warriors this season.
For sure. So with that being said, do you guys think, let's kind of wrap up the NBA discussion for the day, do you guys think that LeBron stands any type of chance this season in the West with the players he has around him? We still have some time left in the free agency, obviously. We don't know what Kawhi is going to do. There's a whole lot of controversy around Kawhi. Obviously Lillard now. So do you think that if the Lakers can add one more and get some pieces around LeBron, that could make them a contender for the Western Conference Championship?
Steph, Clay, Draymond, KD, Boogie. That's all I got to say about that.
and really, how do you argue that,
Yeah.
I mean, if you got 5 guys, I think the only way this works is if, for whatever reason, Golden State struggles before January. But you have 4 All-Stars, and we still don't know the schedule yet. So with that said, I'm going to have to say no. I think that if they're in opposite sides of the bracket, that LeBron would be able to get to the conference finals, maybe take a game.
Agreed.
Maybe 2 if he's lucky, but they will not beat the Warriors in this condition. But I do think it has something to be said. If DeMarcus Cousins does not come back healthy and he can't go for whatever reason, that does open the door potentially, because then they have a weakness on the inside after losing JaVale McGee. I don't think Jordan Bell, Kevon Looney, Zaza, they're not going to stand up to any other big men inside.
You're absolutely right. If Boogie doesn't pan out, that opens a small door. If the Lakers can somehow possibly work out a trade for Kawhi, that opens up another little door. But if they're going to get someone, they need another superstar. I don't think they can just get another guy.
No, I think, like you said, either the Kawhi situation works itself out, which it's not looking like it's going to, then I think Damian Lillard is your other option. And if Portland's not wanting to deal, I think that this season is, I don't want to say it's a throwaway, but it's almost looking like it will be.
For sure. All right, so let's kind of switch gears here. Let's move to some college basketball. Let's go with our local team, 2018 Fighting Illini men's basketball. They have just signed 2 commits, one being power forward Anthony Higgs, and 2 being Adonis De La Rosa out of Kent State. Anthony Higgs in that power forward position, that adds that's a big add to help Alan Griffin out in that spot, because Anthony Higgs is long, he's athletic, and he can score. Tyson, what do you think about Higgs?
Well, like you said, that's a power forward position, and that's one of the positions that the Illini desperately need. We don't have a whole lot of big dudes, and Higgs plays a big position. He's a large dude that can fill that hole, and it helps move down my boy, old Pumpernickel. It helps move him back down to the 3, where I believe is his true position, that small forward position, where he can dominate some of the other guys that don't have the beef that he's got, but he's still good size. He can keep up with the tall Lankies. So I think Higgs fits in really well. He's a great player. Decommitted from Ole Miss, like you said, had some Power 5 offers. That doesn't go lightly. He's a good player.
Those Power 5s include Louisville in that situation too. Now we know Louisville's running into some issues with the whole recruiting scandal in the NCAA, but still the fact that he turned down Louisville to come to the University of Illinois, that's a big saying right there.
Absolutely. He may have seen what Underwood is trying to put together here and been thinking, well, I want to be a part of that. This is a guy who's 6'8". He's a great rebounder. He's out of Baltimore area in Maryland,
Perry Hall High School,
which is known for basketball players. They breed basketball players and football players, for that matter, for what it's worth. But like you said, this is a guy that can help fill out the front court. Really big dude, and he's a winner. And that's what Illinois needs. We need people with championship mentalities. This guy is a two-time state champion. And if we can bring that mindset to our program here at the U of I think we're going to be in good shape.
He kind of flew under the radar a little bit, too. The fact that, he flew under the radar because he was a hard commit to Ole Miss. But their coach left, so he didn't want to play for another coach, which you can't blame him for that. You want to play for the coach that recruited. Right. So Underwood's team came in there, or Underwood's staff just kind of swooped in on him. He's a hard commit to the University of Illinois, so he's more than likely going to sign being a hard commit. But that's just nothing but good things for the University of Illinois.
Here's an interesting fact that I just found is he's the first Illinois committed recruit to come out of the Baltimore area since 2005, and that was Chester Frazier.
Yep, that's for sure. And we need to recruit Baltimore a little harder, just like Chicago.
Absolutely.
A lot of good potential comes out of Baltimore with Frazier in 05. Frazier was a phenomenal asset to that 05 team with Luther Head and Darren Williams, not to mention D. Brown, of course. But Chester Frazier did just as much for the 2005 Fighting Illini that D. Brown did. So
this will be the 7th freshman Illinois is bringing in. This is going to be an exciting team here. If not this year, definitely next year. I mean, this has got to be the youngest team in the Big Ten.
Oh, it is the youngest team in the Big Ten.
By far.
And they've also got like the 5th or 6th best recruiting class in the Big Ten, and they're all freshmen. So that being said, like you just touched on, they're going to be phenomenal in the next, not this season. They're not an NCAA tournament team yet. They haven't seen any Big Ten play, and then they're going to be kind of in for a rude awakening when they do hit that Big Ten play. But for the fact that they do have all of these assets and these top-tier recruits with Io, now Griffin, and adding Higgs.
And don't forget Jones. He's going to be a great
Jones,
talent.
I'm really excited to watch him play this year. But the fact that they can, get all of this top-tier talent, and all these guys do want to play for Brad Underwood in his system, which the system has been coming to prove that he wants tall, thin, athletic, and just fast and explosive players, which is what he has on this roster. to complement Frazier, because Trent Frazier is honestly the leader of this team.
Yeah, and he will be going forward. Yeah,
and he's probably going to play all 4 years in college at the U of I. So him being a leader, that's just a big thing. But hopefully Io can step up and become a leader of this team right along with Frazier. And if Io doesn't, I could see Alan Griffin possibly or Tevion joining Frazier in that leadership spot.
Well, yeah, and Frazier, like you said, he wasn't the leader to begin the season, but he jumped down the throat of the Illini and took it. He wanted it, and that's exactly what we need. Needed a guy to kind of take that role. Want a guy that wants to be there, wants to win, wants to do what it takes and what is necessary. And I think they're finding some good guys to fill around him with that same mentality, and I think that goes a long way for Illini basketball.
So let's move on to our second recruit, Adonis De La Rosa, coming out of Kent State. He's a grad transfer, immediately eligible. 7 foot, 261 pounds, coming out. He's originally from the Bronx. The Bronx produces great potential. Obviously, it's another basketball city, basketball town. But with that being said, De La Rosa, that 7 foot, 261 pound frame, is going to do nothing but add athleticism and strength for one season down in the low block with Kane. Kane's going to need some help in the Big Ten because I have a feeling Kane's going to get bullied his first year. I mean, let's just be honest, he's not that stout yet. But when he gets in that weight room with Fletch, gets some meat on him, gets some, helps his footwork a little bit more, or beefs it up rather, he will be a Big Ten, big man here coming up in the future seasons. But getting De La Rosa to where he can potentially work with Kane a little bit, that's just a big X factor right there. One thing about De La Rosa I want to talk about real quick, coming from the mid-major from Kent State, he's known to get into foul trouble over there. That's kind of a big issue. Well, there's another big looming issue that I'll touch on in a second. But getting in foul trouble at the mid-major level, how is he going to be able to not carry that over into the Big Ten level when the talent is so much better? But he was also averaging 3.7 turnovers a game. That's another thing that can't happen. Now, I will say this. Since he was in foul trouble all the time, it's kind of a double whammy because a lot of those turnovers are coming on the offensive end of the court. So that's kind of a big issue that they're going to have with De La Rosa, with the foul trouble and the offensive turnovers. That just can't happen if you want to win Big Ten ball games.
Well, and that's definitely agreed. He does have some issues, but this is a guy, as you said, a grad transfer that will actually bring some experience to that very, very young locker room. So I really like that about him, and I love his size, 7 foot, 260. That's what I've been harping on the last couple times we've talked about basketballs. We're getting these 7-footers, these guys that are 6'8", and they're 205 pounds.
This is a very big boy.
Yeah, it's nice to have a guy that's actually got some beef, isn't going to get just used and abused down there on the low block.
And real quick, I want to touch on this would be a great mentor for Kane when he comes here because he's going to be a freshman, but he's a 7-footer. Now we have an actual 7-footer that's proven himself at the collegiate level, and now that Kane can soak up, that information from him and just learn from a veteran that's been around.
Yeah, absolutely. We already thought Kane was going to be good, but having a guy that's been there, done that, even if it's just for a year, even if he's a little rusty on that ACL tear, it'll definitely help Kane out in the long run, help him stay throughout his 4 years, help him develop to what he can be.
Right. Rosa's a guy that played at Kent State, and he averaged 8 points and 6 rebounds. Now, it doesn't seem like much at the collegiate level, but this is a guy whose last season also included 220 in 10 games.
Yeah, and the last season it also included an ACL injury that he had to have surgery for.
Absolutely.
So we got to take that into account as well.
Yeah, of course. And then how is he going to come back from that, obviously? Because ACL, like you said in basketball, is nothing to be joked about because this is a very serious injury. But having said that, he did put up 20 points against Buffalo, which was a team that ended up beating DeAndre Ayton, Arizona, in the NCAA tournament. So if he can put 20 points up on a team that can compete with Arizona and all of the studs they have on that squad, we're looking at someone who can definitely bring something to the Big Ten Conference.
I hope that De La Rosa can get healthy and can be on the court opening day. If he can't make the preseason games, oh well. But if he can be on for that ACC tournament that we do every year that the Big Ten competes in, I hope he can get healthy enough for that. If he can't, I would rather him stay seated on that bench and get healthy for Big Ten play. Because obviously that's when we're going to need him the most, is down in that low block against guys like from Wisconsin and Ethan Happ or anybody else in the Big Ten, honestly, because Michigan State, Michigan, they've always produced very solid big men that have gone to the NBA. So that being said, I just hope that we can produce some guys that De La Rosa will be a guy that we can rely on in the low block when it comes to the Big Ten play, and hopefully he can carry us to maybe a Big Ten tournament where we don't get knocked out in the first round.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely going to be interesting bringing these two guys in. I think we're finally seeing the final product of what Brad Underwood is starting to work with and what he's going to be able to mold those guys into, and how good this team is going to be is going to be interesting moving forward. And I'm definitely excited to even see them grow this season. Obviously, I'm not expecting much success, but we'll see what they're able to do. Let me switch gears here. And let's talk about the NHL. It's been 2 episodes since we've really mentioned it, and NHL free agency has been a little crazy, to say the least. John Tavares was a guy who was on the market who the Islanders really weren't sure what he was going to do, but he kind of made it known that he wanted out and he wanted to play for his hometown Maple Leafs, which he did end up signing, and I can't tell you as a Maple Leafs fan, I could not be happier. He signed a 7-year, $77 million deal, and Vegas now has the Maple Leafs as the favorites to win the Stanley Cup in 2019. Cale, I want to go ahead and get your thoughts on this because I know we were talking about it before we came on today. You don't really think the Maple Leafs are in contention. I would go ahead and let us know why.
Is it going to happen? Yeah, the Tavares, John Tavares is an amazing player. He proved that with the Islanders. He's a scorer. He's a decent center. He wins like almost 80% of his faceoffs. You can't knock him for that. I'm glad he finally got paid. He deserves it, and he's at home too, so that helps a lot. And there have already been videos of the Tavares burning jerseys all over Twitter, so I love those. But
it's kind of like the LeBron of the NHL.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. But the reason why I don't think they're going to be in the Stanley Cup or in for Stanley Cup contention is basically due to Frederik Andersen, their goaltender. 6'4", 230. He's a big body, big frame, and he was actually huge for a goaltender. You don't see very many 6'4" goaltenders.
Oh, no.
But I just don't feel like behind Frederik Andersen that they can be a Stanley Cup winning team. Unless Frederik Andersen this offseason can turn it around, which I don't see happening at any point in time, I just don't feel like they're going to beat guys in their conference. That's just 100% biased. I want to see him prove me wrong because I'm a big Tavares fan. I always have been. But we got to remember that in their division, we got Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh should have won back-to-back, but they got knocked out by the Caps, they got knocked out by the Stanley Cup winning team. So they got knocked out by the best team. But Tampa Bay always putting together these solid runs. They put together a decent run against the Caps in the playoffs this year. And the fact, too, that they also have Philadelphia, the 76ers, or the Flyers, excuse me, all this NBA talk. The Flyers, they made it to the playoffs this year, so they got a tough division that they're going to have to get out of that I just don't see it happening.
Well, they were 49, 26, and 7. That's a pretty good season, and they were still third in the Atlantic Division this year. The Maple Leafs were. Mm-hmm. That's a good record, and they're going up against some good teams in that conference.
We forgot about Boston as well.
Right.
Which is who knocked us out in the first round, Game 7. The Bruins took us out.
Now, I'm not going to say they're not Stanley Cup contenders, but I don't think Tavares makes that big of a change from where they were last year. Still made the playoffs, got knocked out in the first round. That's not an awful season. But I don't think he elevates him quite that high. The interesting thing I found on Tavares, he was -5 last year in his plus-minus, meaning that when he was on the ice, the team was outscored by 5 goals,
right,
generally. So he played for a bad team. The Islanders were 35, 37, and 10. He's played with them for 9 years. They didn't qualify for the playoffs for 6 times. In his career, his plus-minus was -12 so far with the Islanders. That's not good. The elite players that you see, Sidney Crosby, Austin Matthews, guys like that, they're +12, +20, 4. But you got to be in the positive. I found that pretty interesting that he's been negative for his whole career. Now, like I said, he does play for a bad team. They didn't qualify 6 times out of the 9 years he was there. They lost in the first round, they lost in the second round, and they lost in the conference finals once. So he hasn't really had a good run of it. Not really a whole lot around him to help him out with that plus minus. But he had 84 points last year. That's a good season. It's nothing outstanding. It's nothing average. It's a good season. But I don't think he is that big of an elevation to make them contenders for the Stanley Cup.
Well, I want to say this. I know that I jokingly compared him to LeBron James of the NHL, but this situation really reminds me of the first stint LeBron had in Cleveland, as Tavares did with the Islanders.
Right.
Okay. LeBron didn't have that much success. He made it to the finals one time, made it to the conference finals a couple times, but ended up getting knocked out by better teams, even if he had the better seed. Okay. Tavares is a guy that's been to the playoffs. He's had success. He's made it to the conference finals, so we know that he's capable of doing so and putting a team on his back. Now that you pair him up with a guy like Auston Matthews, this could be one of the best 1-2 punches in the NHL. And I think that's why Vegas has them so high as a Stanley Cup, not only a contender, but have them as the favorites to win it. I mean, Auston Matthews, this is a guy, I don't want to say he's slept on, but I do think that he doesn't get as much notoriety as he should, being the best player on the Leafs.
He doesn't get as much notoriety as because he's in Toronto.
Yeah, they're all the way up there in Canada,
Yeah, and being in Toronto, who has been a crap organization for the last couple of years, other than they've made a couple playoff runs, but they haven't got out of the second round.
Right. I tell you what, and being a fan, it's been hard to watch. It's been hard to hear the stories, and I haven't even been paying attention up until the last couple of years because it's been that painful. But now that we have someone that's been a 5-time All-Star, that's been to the playoffs, that has that experience, that we can pair with Matthews on the opposite side of the ice, I mean, this is just it's an exciting time to be a Leafs fan. I'm telling you.
It should be a decent season, but I don't see him in the Stanley Cup Finals. Not unless they get rid of Anderson. Anderson, like I said, I don't want to knock him too hard because he is a halfway average goaltender, but you can't not win a Stanley Cup with an average goaltender.
And, no, I tell you what, that's a fair criticism, and I know that we talked about this also before the show. As long as we can outscore the opponents, if Anderson wants to give up 5 goals and we score 6, we still win the game.
Yep, I mean, that just all comes down to numbers. There's a lot of validity to that, but at the same time, he's got to be able to stop Marc-Andre Fleury on the other end. He's got to be able to stop Jonathan Quick and the LA Kings. He's got to be able to stop Holtby now with the Capitals. You know, it's going to be a tough ride for the Leafs coming out of that Atlantic division. I just don't see it happening.
All right, and you know what? That's a fair criticism. You know, we'll have to see what they're able to do, and you know what? As a fan, I hope they prove them wrong because I would like to see them hoist up that cup. It's been a very long time.
I'm not disagreeing that. I just
67 they won.
That was the last time they won. Yep.
But moving on here, we have another interesting signing. We have the Las Vegas Golden Knights signed center Paul Stastny to a 3-year, $19.5 million deal. And I mean, this was a head scratcher for me because the Winnipeg Jets had a pretty good series with them. They went 6 games. You know, I don't know why they wouldn't retain this guy and try to re-sign him, or maybe they tried and he just said, "No, I'm going to go to Vegas." But I find it hard to go to the team that beat you to get to the finals.
I'm going to throw in one thing. In 2015, everybody wanted to come to the Chicago Cubs. The Vegas is where they're at right now. Everybody wants to go play for Vegas because Vegas is hot, they're young, they're fast, they're quick. So Paul Stastny wanting to go over to Vegas from Winnipeg, who beat them, is not a bad idea. You got to remember, the guys in the NHL are not like the NBA. They're not here to chase rings. They're here to play the game of hockey with who they feel like they can win with. Vegas has that rough and tough young group that wants to win, and they have the drive because they've been criticized all year saying they're not going to be nothing. So with adding Stastny to the Golden Knights, another center that can win faceoffs, and he has proven that all season long in Winnipeg. It's a good pickup for Vegas. How will it affect Winnipeg? Don't know. Winnipeg still got a lot of decent players. They still got Hollebuck out of Dearborn, Michigan, front their goaltender they can put on their back and just ride him all the way to the Stanley Cup. But and Bufflin too. Dustin Bufflin's been in the league forever, really well respected. That Winnipeg isn't going to be that, or isn't going to have that big of a loss with losing Paul Stancy. I mean, he's just an average player. He does bring energy and he brings fire to the ice into that bench over there. But I just feel like he's not gonna, or the Winnipeg isn't gonna, feel that loss of losing him that much.
Well, and he's a guy, like you said, wins his faceoffs, and that's very important. You got to have the puck to be able to throw it in the back of that net. Now, he doesn't show up on the stat sheet a lot throughout the rest of the stats, but faceoffs are very important, and I think Vegas realized that, and they went out and paid this guy to come do that because they had a little issue with that this year. Couldn't win a whole lot of them.
Vegas doesn't have a true center that can win faceoffs, but now they do, and that's what they were looking for, and that's what they signed, and they went out and got it.
Real quick, though, do you think that this is a problem? Because Vegas has already lost a handful of guys to other teams because of the success that they had, so those guys got paid. Because like you said, with an expansion team, you have that expansion draft, and then it's all the players that teams didn't want, right? Or didn't feel like they needed to, put the hold on.
Correct.
And keep them. So now that they had that success and they're going to other teams, they're getting paid. Does this kind of deplete the roster of Vegas, and do you see them having the same success that they did this year?
No, the Golden Knight, or I do see them having the success. It does not deplete them as a team. They had to get rid of some people due to the salary cap, obviously, because they made it to the Stanley Cup, so their salary cap shrinks. Does it deplete them as a team? Absolutely not, because they've got that young core that it's just solid. I mean, I don't have anything else to say other than they're solid. It's not going to affect them that much. They did get a good center. They've got proven scorers that are young on that team.
They lost a couple guys, but I don't think is anything big enough for them to worry about. I don't know if they'll have Stanley Cup success again this year, but I see them making it to the playoffs easily.
I do see a Western Conference Final team.
I was about to say they still are top four in favorite Vegas odds to win the cup.
Right.
So
yeah, they still have very good chances. Like I said, I don't know if it's Stanley Cup chances, but they've definitely got a good team in the Western Conference. There's no doubt about that.
And that was after this signing. Real quick though, how do you I know you touched on it a little bit, but Tyson, I want to get your take on it real quick. How do you expect the Jets to bounce back from this loss? Is it that big of a loss for Winnipeg?
Like I said, he didn't show up too big on the stats. I think in the 19 games he had with the Jets before the playoffs, he had 4 goals, 9 assists, so that's 13 points. Now, in that time, he was +6 in those few games that he had with the Jets in the regular season. Before that, with St. Louis, he was -5 in the other 63 games in the front half of the season.
Not good.
Yeah, once again, not good. But he very much turned it around. He ended up playing phenomenally with the Jets, winning his face-offs and getting points when he needed to get them, and he played great throughout the playoffs. So I don't think it's a huge loss. I think he's a good player with better qualities, but I think he can be replaced.
A lot of people said, real quick, just one more thing before we move on to the next signing. A lot of people said that the Jets overachieved this year and making it to the conference finals. I think a lot of people are on board with that statement. Is this something with this loss that they can do again? Can they make it to the conference finals?
Absolutely. They've only lost 2 guys, being Stanzi and I can't remember the other guy.
I can't remember.
They've only lost 2 out of that team. They still got a solid coach. They've still got a solid goaltender. And the Winnipeg whiteout up there. I don't know if you guys got to see any of those Jets games, but man, when they're at home, it is loud and it is insane in that ice or that rink.
Which, oddly enough, they struggle winning at home.
They had in the Stanley Cup finals. They had better record on the road than they did at home, which that doesn't make sense. But some teams are just better on the road.
Absolutely, some just kind of maybe the pressure of having to perform in front of fans that are so passionate and just want to see their
packed house.
Yeah, they want to see their team succeed so badly. But getting on to the next signing here, the Washington Capitals re-signed defender John Carlson to an 8-year, $64 million deal. How important was this for Washington?
I saw it coming. John Carlson's their best defender they have. He's been in the league forever. The only concern that I have with that John Carlson signing is what are they going to do with Ovechkin and Backstrom? That they do have a bunch of cap space now with losing Barry Trotz and their coach, and they did sign their in-house, their interim. They brought their assistant coach up to their head coach. But the fact that John Carlson signed a $64 million deal for 8 years, that's insane for a defender. He deserves it. He needs to get paid. But what do you think, Tyson, that it's going to do for Backstrom and Ovechkin in that Capitals organization?
Well, I think you hit it. That's a lot of money, especially for a defenseman. 8 years, $64 million. That's a lot of money. I think it very much depletes what they had left in the bank. So when those guys come up for an extension or a new deal, it very much limits their money in that. Now, John Carlson is a good defender, but he's a little bit older, so I think 8 years might have been a little bit much.
It's safe to say he's definitely going to retire after this 8-year contract.
Oh, yeah. But he had good production for a defenseman. I understand why they paid him. I just think they might have done it for a little too long or a little too much, especially to sign Ovechkin and some of those other guys that are going to need some contracts coming up here soon.
One guy that they got to worry about is Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson, the goon, the enforcer.
Yep.
I love watching him wreck people on the ice. He's the best enforcer that the NHL has right now. You could throw Corey Perry in there, but I mean he doesn't really do much out there in Anaheim as it comes to enforcing. Tom Wilson is not afraid to put his body on the line, and when that dude is in a little bit of extracurricular activity, and it doesn't mean that they're going to drop gloves, that guy will throw hands, and he does it effectively. He packs a punch. But Tom Wilson's somebody that they got to keep to protect, some of these guys. In the NHL, there's, 2 or 3 guys on the ice that are there to protect one player. Tom Wilson's out there to protect Ovechkin and Backstrom, and I love Tom Wilson watching him play.
I know that you sent me that compilation of him, let's just be honest, kicking other people's ass on the ice. Yeah. I mean, that's what it was. If you haven't seen a compilation of him on YouTube, I highly suggest watching it because it's very entertaining. One thing, though, before we move on to the last signing we're going to talk about, we know that they re-signed their best defender, but they lost their coach,
Barry Trotz,
and
who coincidentally went to the Islanders.
Right, and now that Trotz is gone, what are the chances of the Capitals not only making it back, but ultimately winning the Cup?
Slim to none. They're not going back.
Once again, coach is a big deal.
Especially in the NHL.
Yeah. But they've still they've got that core group of guys that just won it. They haven't really lost anybody. They haven't really gained anybody. I think they've got a really good shot at going back. If they can pull off the same kind of magic and beat the Penguins and beat Tampa Bay and
the Maple Leafs.
And beat the Maple Leafs, beat those other really good teams in the Eastern Conference, if they can show me that throughout the regular season, I'll stand by them all the way. I think they've got a good shot at going again. Maybe not winning, but definitely going.
I just don't see them beating Pittsburgh or Boston or the Flyers for that matter.
We said that this year too.
Yeah, true. And we also said that whoever beat Pittsburgh was going to win the Cup. Yep. We called that way before the Stanley Cup Finals even started.
And that ended up coming
true.
So there it is. Last one we want to talk about, though. The St. Louis Blues signed David Perron for a 4-year extension for the 3rd time after playing his last season in Vegas due to the expansion draft.
I hate the St. Louis Blues, just like I hate the St. Louis Cardinals. But David Perron coming home, that means a lot to the St. Louis organization. That city absolutely loves that guy. This is his 3rd 4-year extension or 4-year deal that he's signed with the Blues. He pairs very well with Tarasenko and Tarasenko. I don't know why. Quentin Tarasenko is a good offender, good scorer. Darren Perron, he just pairs very well with them guys in St. Louis. I'm glad he's home. Congrats to him. Even congrats on his Stanley Cup run too. I mean, he had the opportunity, but hopefully now St. Louis can get a Stanley Cup run in them. Besides getting, having amazing seasons and getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good job for him out in Vegas, helping put together that run they made. I'm glad to see him back in St. Louis so we can see the Blackhawks beat him up a couple more times.
Go Hawks!
Hey, they still brought the Knights still brought home that conference trophy. So I mean, that's something that he can take back.
He contributed to that a lot as well.
Absolutely. So that's something he can take back to the Blues, and
the Blues already have a winning mentality, and they prove that because they've had plus seasons over the last 5 or 6. So David Perron coming back with that core group of guys that the Blues have just does nothing but add potential to the Central Conference in the West. But we still got to remember, we have the Hawks. I'm a Hawks fan. Tyson's a Hawks fan. And at the same time, they still have Nashville. Nashville's going to pose problems for everybody. They have the last 3 seasons. Nashville's turned into such a big hockey town, it isn't even funny.
And I want to say one thing. I mean, I'm a Leafs fan, but being in Illinois, being close to Chicago, I am a Hawks fan. I remember when they won those 3 cups, I was there for the last one because I finally started to get into hockey, and that was probably the most excited Chicago's been since the Bears were in the Super Bowl in 2006.
For sure.
So, yeah, I definitely am looking forward to them improving, and I don't expect them to do it this year, but I think next year they could be looking at definitely making the playoffs. Would you say that that's out of reach?
Hopefully. But I feel like they're almost in a rebuild mode now.
Yeah, they're they're flipping the button for sure.
Yeah.
With getting or being in a rebuild, it's going to be kind of hard for them to get to the playoffs. But rebuilds in hockey are a lot quicker than they are in the NBA or the MLB.
Right.
They do happen a lot faster.
Or the NFL, because the Browns are still working on it.
The Browns have been working on it for, 20 years?
Since 99. So.
Yeah,
hey,
for sure.
You know what? We're not there yet, but I'll tell you what. I am looking forward to Mayfield. If he can get the starting job, I feel like he's going to electrify Cleveland. Especially with LeBron being gone. I feel like he can be the next stud.
I could talk about that dude all day.
I knew that was coming.
I'm going to save it for another time.
We'll be coming up with NFL talk probably here in the next few weeks, but we'll go ahead and save that for now. Switching gears again, though, we're going to go ahead and get into MLB because, we can't end a show without talking about the MLB. And, of course, we got to start off with the Chicago Cubbies. They won 6 straight. That's 2 sweeps, beating the Twins and the Tigers both back-to-back. 6-game winning streak, longest of the season. They got the Reds starting tonight.
They play today at 1:20.
Or today at 1:20. I say tonight, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
so
we're recording at 9 in the morning.
Yeah. But they got them at home. The Cubs play great at home. The Reds' hot streak is finally over. Do you guys expect the Cubs to reach a 10-game winning streak?
I sure hope so. They've got great potential. Like, the Reds are the worst team in our division. Now, we said that a couple weeks ago.
When they got swept.
And bad things happened. But
you were also at Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We were at Cincinnati then. We are 23-21 away games this year, and at home we're 26-14. We very much, obviously, play better at home. So I think this home stretch is really helping us out. I think playing a bad team at home will definitely boost a little bit more of that confidence we've been talking about, needing to get some of that back. So I think it's very attainable that they can reach that 10-game win streak.
I see that too. We're hot, and we're super hot. The Cubs are hot, and the Cubs are hot, and the Cubs are hot. This is what they looked like in 2016 when they won the World Series. And they were not struggling near as much in the first half of the season.
But you guys were talking about this a couple weeks ago and saying it will happen. Just wait for it.
It's just a matter of when.
And it warmed up.
Here it is.
It warmed up. It got hot. That stint in Wrigley against the Twins, when that wind was blowing out to dead center. And them balls were just carrying. Kyle Schwarber, Addison Russell, everybody out here hitting bombs. Heck, we even got John Lester out here hitting bombs.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. It warmed up. It was good conditions for hitting. Pitching, not so much, but pitchers, they got to keep them pitch counts to less than 25 an inning. I talked about that earlier. You're just laboring at that point when it's 107 heat index. So, but the fact that the bats are warming up and they're staying hot, they're scoring runs, they're coming through in the clutch.
And the pitching's improving, too. From 3 weeks ago, the pitching looks better than it did.
We're not giving up 10 runs a game the last couple of games.
That's what I'm saying. Whether it's a small improvement, it's still an improvement.
I'm going to say this. We're getting more production out of our starters, minus Kyle Hendricks, who's in his slump. I kind of figured it was coming. I just didn't know when. Hopefully he bounces out of it.
He's had 4 great seasons without a slump.
And he's here. And his slump, though, let's talk about that for just a quick second. His slump, he's not missing the strike zone. He is throwing strikes. His command isn't like Tyler Chatwood's, where he's 6 foot above your head and then he throws something bouncing into the dirt before it even hits the plate. So he's throwing strikes. He's just getting rocked. It's like since he's not a flame-throwing starting pitcher, he's just his junk pitches like his curveball, that slider he's got, and that slow change at the low 70s, mid-70s. It's just getting crushed. You can't do much about that. It'll come. Hopefully with the All-Star break, he'll be back, which happens in a week. So. I'm not really worried about Kyle Hendricks yet. I knew his slump was coming. But that being said, the starting pitching with Quintana's giving you good innings. Lester, being John Lester, he got NL Pitcher of the Month. Lester, Chatwood, we could just do without Chatwood. But Montgomery's coming in, stepping up in a big way. That's another dominant left-hander we have in there with John Lester, replacing Yu Darvish, which honestly I would be okay if Yu Darvish stayed on the bench.
Not for $126 million.
Put him in the bullpen for all I care. That's fine with me, too. I do not want to see him start because I don't want to see him ruin our streaks. Although, if he does get a W where he could score 5 or 6 runs or come through in the clutch with the bases loaded and get out of it, I could see him perking up a little bit. But I don't know. The Cubs starting pitching is just being really dominant right now, and it needs to continue to do that. And we got Brandon Morrow back, so that helps. Brandon Morrow. Justin Wilson, he's okay out of the bullpen. Brian Dunsing, I do not like at all. I never have. I never did like.
See, I like Dunsing. I don't like Wilson one bit.
I never did like that Brian Dunsing trade since day one that it happened. But I do like the fact that Morrow is back. But he is our closer. We know that, and he isn't getting very many innings because we've been beating everybody by a minimum of 6 runs. So.
Real quick, I want to talk about Javier Baez, okay? That steal that he had when he was stealing home, and he contorted his body and just touched it with his fingertips while avoiding the tag.
It's that swim tag.
How impressive was that?
Dude's just a stud.
He's
done this several times now. He'll just move his hand out of the way or move his whole body out of the way or just wiggle around wherever he wants to wiggle. But he's going to touch that bag before you touch him. He's just a stud.
Did you guys get a chance to see that play? Did you see it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so when he took off for second and they muffed that throw to second base and he went to third, and then that left fielder made the most god-awful throw I've ever seen in my entire life. It looked like a little leaguer. But when they muffed that throw to third, I thought he was going to take off right there, and it only bounced like 6 feet away from the bag. And I was thinking, oh, my God, he's going to steal home and get thrown out with nobody else. With nobody out, and we needed it because we didn't have a run on the board yet. Mm-hmm. But as soon as that play happened and Butterfield did call him back to third, I knew that he was going to go home. You could see it with Russell, especially when Russell got on first because Javi was taking almost a 20-foot lead off of the bag. And the fact that he just goes home and just steals and swipes it like there's no problem, it's amazing. And it all started in the 2015 NLDS. When he did it there, that was really close. That just sparked his confidence for stealing home.
And real quick, I want to just give props to the officials for being able to see this because when you're watching at home or you're there, you can't see it.
That bang play, it's hard to see.
Oh, you can't see it because I think, oh man, there's no way, Yeah. And then you go back and see that there's about an inch and a half between the glove and his shirt. Yeah, when he's still clearing the bag. It was something incredible.
I've watched that video probably 57 times and paused it on several different moments.
6 inches.
And
he had.
It looks like he's getting tagged in most of them until you see that one very, very slim angle where you can actually see that he's not anywhere close to getting tagged. But to see that in real time, good job on that ref.
Because you got to think, Javi's flying down that base path.
Oh, yeah.
He is speedy, he's quick, and he's athletic, and I love Javier Baez. But he is absolutely hauling down that line. And the fact, too, that throw is coming in at least the upper 80s to mid-90s. And the fact that he can get it, see that tag, and see that they've missed and get the call right almost 75% of the time, it's unreal. I got nothing but respect for MLB.
It's incredible. Not only did he steal home, and have we seen him do this before, but we've seen him grow into almost a leader of this Chicago team. Where do you guys see him as far as a mentor for these young guys? Because we know he's still young himself, but he's been in the league for a few years now. As far as the leadership role goes, where do you see him fitting in at?
A leader, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
I think he's a spark plug.
Energy leader.
An electric factory. Dude is just there, and he's exciting. And he'll get the other guys amped up, but I don't think he's meaning to do it. He wants to do it. I just don't think he's necessarily a leader. He's not gonna, when they're down, he's not gonna go into the dugout and get everybody up off their butts.
In other words, he's not Jason Hayward
or Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah.
Right.
He's not that kind of leader. But as far as providing a spark and getting some excitement flowing, I think he's great for that. But I don't see him being a leader. I think he's still a little too immature. Not in a bad way. I just think he's young. He's still new to the league. Maybe several years down the road, but not now.
Javi Baez sits in that dugout when they're down 4-0, and he says, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit a grand slam. And that's what's going to happen. Them guys feed off of that energy. Him and Wilson Contreras both. They bring nothing but positive energy. They are absolutely electric to watch in that dugout and on the field. When something good happens, Javi's in that dugout doing some type of weird dance that we've never seen before. So, and Contreras, he's just he's just a spaz, essentially. I love the guy to death. He's probably my favorite player on the Cubs, but he's a spaz. You can see him bouncing all over the field, bouncing all over behind home plate. It's just amazing to watch them two play together.
So would you say then, is he the most clutch player on the Cubs right now?
Right now, absolutely. There's nobody that is a non. Everybody on the Cubs has come through in the clutch at least once, but right now, Javi is the most clutch player on the Chicago Cubs. I would follow that up with Wilson Contreras, but Javi Baez is the hottest Cub that we have, and hopefully that will change when Bryant gets back, or it will just add to the clutch factor when Bryant gets healthy.
Yeah, agreed. I think right now Javi is the guy. I've been talking about him for weeks. He's been my player to watch since we basically started this thing. He's an absolute stud right now. He is providing the clutch. He's providing the motor. He's providing everything. From start to finish, Javi's been the guy in every game for basically the last several weeks.
Real quick, I want to switch gears here and talk about a former Cub. Dexter Fowler of the St. Louis Cardinals. They had this statement come out from the owner and other executives that you have.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So the statement on that is that they're John Mozeliak, the Cardinals president of baseball operations. He stated this on the 5th, which was yesterday. He said that I've had a lot of people come up to me and question his effort, energy level. Those are things I can't defend. What I can defend is trying to create opportunities for him, but not if that's the expense of someone that's out there hustling and playing hard. That is such an immature statement to come out publicly with against a veteran player.
This is something real quick that I think a lot of people can relate this to the LeBron situation. I hate to go back to LeBron again, but it's too similar. When he left the Cavaliers and Dan Gilbert, their owner, the Cavaliers owner, came out and said that LeBron gave up and said that he didn't put the effort forth to beat the Celtics in the second round of the playoffs. I think this is a very similar situation. You cannot question a player's effort, what's going through their head, how their body is right now. I just find it ridiculous. You kind of just have to go with it and help them along, and whatever you can do to make, I don't want to say make life easier, but get them back into the swing of things so they can become the player that they were or improve themselves.
Well, what drives me nuts about this,
one is playing for the Cardinals.
Yeah. Dexter Fowler just left for paternity leave. He's having his second kid, and the statement came out after he left for leave. So he's not even there to defend himself. He's not even there to talk to this guy. Now, whether they had talks or not before he left, I have no idea. But I think it's childish and it's stupid that this came out after he left. The other thing, the beginning of that statement, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, that's a very vague, basic statement. Everybody says that. If you want to put it out there, put it out there. You think that Dexter Fowler isn't putting in the effort. You think. Don't hide it behind a vague,
don't beat around the bush
statement.
With it, right?
Yeah, say it or don't. I don't like this statement coming from them at all. Dexter Fowler's done nothing but work hard for these guys. Every play, every inning, every game. I think that's awful coming from trying to bash on that guy.
And real quick, I just want to say this is coming from two Cub fans and a guy that will cheer for the Cubs when the Blue Jays are performing poorly. All right, this is a guy that played for the Cubs and is now playing for a rival of the Cubs, and we are trying to defend him because this is wrong for any player. If this was coming from the Rockies, if this was coming from the Dodgers, it doesn't matter. This is something that doesn't need to be said from a front office, especially, like you said, Tyson, for a guy that's not even able to defend himself right now. You don't say that to a guy that's leaving to go take care of his newborn, right?
Yep.
It's just unacceptable.
The thing that I'm hung up on the most is that he says, those are things I can't defend. What can he defend? I'm confused. There's nothing to defend on Dexter Fowler other than he's an amazing leadoff hitter.
Right.
He's having a slump. Yes, I understand that. Cardinals fans want to see him perform better. He performed well with the Cubs. You can't deny that. He got us a ring, basically. But the fact that he's their GM or their president of baseball operations is coming out and saying, I've had a lot of people come up to me and question his effort and energy level. What do you mean? What does that mean? Dexter Fowler provides all types of energy. It's just not feasible to make these comments publicly. Now, we don't know, like you said, if they talked behind closed doors, but everything I've heard on ESPN
should have stayed behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
This is something that shouldn't have went public, but the fact that he can't defend himself is a whole nother issue at itself. Now, going forward, do you think that the Cardinals can repair their relationship with Dexter Fowler? Because I don't see it, and they still got him for 4 more years, I think, because he signed a 7-year deal with him.
Well, this is something, and I hate to go back to LeBron once again, but when
LeBron James,
when he left the Cavs and went to Miami, and Dan Gilbert wrote that letter, he came back 4 years later because he had unfinished business. All right, I don't know what business Dexter Fowler has with the Cardinals other than collecting his paycheck. Right?
There's nothing.
He went to the team that paid him the most money. Now LeBron came back and I don't want to say mended that bridge, but he put up with it and he brought home a ring. Okay, baseball is very different, and if Dexter Fowler doesn't have any business being in St. Louis other than to collect his check, then I would be requesting a trade right now.
Yep.
But the question is, what team wants him at this point with the owner coming out and making those claims, whether they want to believe it or not, just with the season that he's had?
I don't know. For something that's as established as the Cardinals organization to come out and say this, I just don't understand the maneuver. It doesn't make sense.
Leave it to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Dexter Fowler is going to give you 100% no matter where he's at, and he's in a hitting slump, and his hitting is affecting his fielding. It's all one big deal in Major League Baseball that all coincides with each other. I feel bad for the guy. He should have never left Chicago in the first place. He was much happier in Cubby Blue, but he wanted to chase that paycheck rather than chase rings. So,
which when you already have one, that's kind of the way it goes most of the time. I mean, that's any sport. If you got a championship, you want to get paid.
Well, there's some validity to that, but at the same time, I'd rather see him stay loyal because he was a lot happier in Chicago.
Absolutely.
I can tell you that right now.
And most players are happier playing for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, at least recently.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Ever since the Cardinals' last title, I haven't really heard anything great coming out of St. Louis.
They've steadily declined, but now they're in the process where they're rapidly declining.
Yeah.
The only thing that the Cardinals have is that young pitching core. That's it. Besides Yachty, of course, but Yachty's their franchise guy, and he always has been. And he will be. He's just getting old. There's no doubt about it. But they've got Miles Michaelis, Carlos Martinez, Luke Weaver, Michael Wacha, and Jack Flaherty. Even though Wacha's on that 10-day DL, that's still saying something. That Jack Flaherty, I watched him pitch last night against the Giants for a little while. He's a stud. Luke Weaver, he's a stud. I watched Jack Flaherty pitch against the Cubs. But Luke Weaver and Jack Flaherty, those two guys right there are just going to be nothing but all-stars for the Cardinals in the upcoming years. But I know, coming from the past, that the Cardinals are somehow going to lose that.
Real quick, I know that we love talking about the Cardinals and the Cubs, but we got a couple more teams that we got to get to here. Real quick, the Nationals, they're continuing to struggle here. They're 43-43. They're sitting at 500. Bryce Harper is having his worst year at the plate. Could this have to do with that shift to left-handed power hitters, or what's the problem with Bryce Harper right now? Why is he declining?
Well, you see that shift every game so hard against Anthony Rizzo.
Left-handed power hitters.
Left-handed power hitters. Every team is starting to shift hard against all of them, and you're starting to see it working. It's working on Bryce Harper. Anthony Rizzo was 2 for 23 over the last couple of weeks. It's definitely working. It's throwing a mental block in a lot of those guys' heads. And it's definitely affecting their hitting. And if you affect Bryce Harper, you affect the Nationals because he's a big part of that team.
You've got this exaggerated shift that the MLB has come up with to stop this left-handed power hitting. Power hitters that are left-handed are dominantly going to hit the ball to the right side of the field. And that is a given. You see it with Rizzo, Schwarber, Hayward, Harper, everybody.
Given that everyone has to run to first base, this poses a problem to begin with.
Well, power hitters are going to generally take that ball over that right field fence anyway.
Right.
But that being said, this exaggerated shift, let's just talk about this just for 2 seconds. That exaggerated shift, you have the first baseman, the shortstop. You got the shortstop playing where it's in the between second and first. The second baseman's in the middle of the outfield, kind of back behind the short where the second baseman normally stands. You got third base playing behind the second base bag. I don't understand that shift. It works. It's proven. It's putting Rizzo in a slump. It's putting Bryce Harper in a nasty slump this year. He's only batting like 241. That's unreal for Bryce Harper. But the fact, too, that the Nationals are such a bad organization to begin with, they've got some free agents as well. And with Harper and Gio Gonzalez and Daniel Murphy. Daniel Murphy wouldn't be near as big of a punch if they lost him because he's getting old, although we did see what he did against the Cubs in 2015 NLDS. But that's just old news. But he's getting old. Age, you can't stop it. We've said that. We've beat that into the ground. You can't stop age. Gio Gonzalez, losing him, if he walks, he's going to want paid. He's a solid pitcher. He deserves to get paid. But that's the fact that they lose those three guys, the Nationals are done, and I feel bad for Dave Martinez, who just took that manager spot from Chicago. He was their bench coach. I feel bad for him a little bit because he took over a crap organization, and now that crap organization is even worse.
Well, and they weren't too bad 2 weeks ago, but they're 2-8 in their last 10 games.
Yeah.
That's 2 wins, not 2 losses. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. But Gavin said earlier they're 500. They're 43-43 in those 86 games. They're plus 23 in run differential. It's not like they're not putting up runs.
Pitching.
But their pitching is just struggle, which is insane because I'll rave about their pitchers all day. They've got so many guys that you could consider an ace on just about any team. But so they're plus 23 in run differential. That's insane. That's better than some of the conference leaders in all the other divisions. I don't really know how they're struggling so bad. I know Bryce Harper is a chunk of that, but the Nationals are struggling, and I just don't really understand it.
Well, this is one more thing I want to touch on. Yeah, it's terrible for the Nationals because dropping those 8 games, that pretty much takes them out of playoff contention at this point.
They're 6 games back.
I mean, we thought that they had a slim chance of making. At the
beginning of the season, I thought they had an even greater chance.
Right. This is just from a couple weeks ago. We thought that they still had a slim chance to make it in, and now that's pretty much diminished. It's gone. They're not gonna make it. But moving past that, I want to get into real quick before I touch on a couple potential trades. This trade that I want to get to. What do the Orioles do with Machado right now? And where does he go with 3 weeks before the deadline? What team is willing to pick him up? What team should try to pick him up? And how much is Baltimore going to want in return?
So I said this a couple weeks ago that Kawhi's not going to trade because the Spurs aren't willing to get rid of him for a low trade kind of thing. But I think the Orioles will get a lot more out of Machado than the Spurs will with Kawhi. Because Kawhi's set. He wants to play for the Lakers. He wants all this and that, and he won't play. Machado really doesn't care. He wants to go somewhere where he can win and he can get paid. He wants a ring. So I don't really know who should pick him up. I know a team that I would like to see pick him up.
We both know a team we want to see him on.
And they may wear blue and red and live in Chicago.
But I think the Orioles can actually get something out of him because teams know that he's not just a 1-year rental like Kawhi is. If you show him something, give him a reason to stay, he will. And he can put on for a long time for you and show out for your team and give you good results.
I'm so lost with the Manny Machado decision now. I was reading on MLB.com the other day that they put him on all 50 teams. The teams that he benefited the most are the Houston Astros, which I don't understand that because they have Carlos Correa in the shortstop position. Their third base position, though, is kind of lacking, and he can play third.
Yeah, he can play third.
He can play third a lot better than he can play short or second, but that could be a good fit. I also saw Seattle at number 1.
That would be interesting.
That would be very interesting, and there's their rental guy. They got their rental if Seattle does pick him up. As much as I want to see him in Chicago, I'm starting to see pieces that aren't allowing that, or that are not going to allow that to happen. The fact that we don't want him here for a rental when we have Addison Russell, who still can produce, and he is producing a little more. Mark my words, I'm feeling bad for saying that because I still think he should leave. But the fact that he isn't going to be a rental guy, I would rather the Cubs pass on Machado to get Harper. That's just me, because we know Mike Trout's more than likely not going to leave L.A.
Right.
Unfortunately.
He likes that rodeo drive, and no matter how bad he is, he's already going to be the greatest player of our generation. So, I don't know. That Manny Machado, that's...
Undoubtedly not just our generation. I mean, that's going to be the best player in Angels history by far.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some validity to that, but I don't, he's already putting up Babe Ruth numbers.
Right.
So that's kind of concerning there, and he's only been in the league for 5 years. We got to remember, too, with the Bryce Harper situation, he's only 25.
Right.
He's been in the league for a long time, so nobody remembers that he's only 25. But with the Machado, I don't know. I just don't see him ending up in Chicago right now, as of right now. That could change because it's about to heat up. We're about to hit the hot stove.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
People definitely going to be jumping around. And real quick, one last thing I want to touch on. is the Yankees and the Brewers are showing a lot of interest in DeGrom. The Yankees also showing interest in the Blue Jays' Happ. What do you see happening with DeGrom, and is Happ going to end up with the Yankees or possibly in Seattle?
I can see Happ. Well, here's the thing. If the Yankees acquire J.A. Happ, they're not going to have the space to get Jacob DeGrom because the Mets are going to want everything and anything for Jacob DeGrom. Can't blame them. You know, they got him locked. He's their best pitcher. He can opt out of his contract and go somewhere else by this free agency deadline, but I just don't see that happening. J.A. Happ to the Yankees, that ain't going to happen because Toronto's not going to trade their best pitcher to New York, their division rival.
Right.
Unless they're getting quite a bit in return.
Which the Yankees aren't going to give up anything.
No, absolutely
they're not.
not.
Gonna offer that. They're not going to help rebuild their own rival.
Who could they offer? Gleyber Torres.
Right.
But they don't want to offer Gleyber Torres because he's their hottest shortstop they've got right now. Maybe Greg Bird.
Well, and see, that's exactly what the Jays are looking for because Tulowitzki's been struggling this year.
They're not going to get rid of Gleyber Torres. That's
right.
not going to happen. But no, I don't see him going to the Yankees. I also don't see Jacob DeGrom going to the Yankees. I could see him. The Brewers are showing a lot of interest in J.A. Happ. So are the Mariners. But I feel like since the Mariners are showing a lot of interest, he's not going to lead the AL. That's just my opinion.
I think the trade deadline coming up, it's getting real hot in the MLB so far this year. But I think I just don't really think it's all going to happen. I think everybody's getting a little too excited, making too many predictions, thinking about everything too much. I think we'll see more pieces stay put than what we're expecting.
See, yeah.
We just want to anticipate for anything that could possibly happen.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that could happen, but whether it happens or not, that's a whole different story.
Well, see, that's half the fun is
with the Mets.
Speculation.
It sucks.
I want to see him out of that organization so bad.
Yeah,
he would fare well with any other team besides the Mets.
Kind of how I felt when the Mets signed Bautista, but I don't think anyone wants to see anyone from their team go to the Mets.
No, not the Mets.
Please, not the Mets. But hey, speculation's half the fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we like talking about it. But
wouldn't be sports without speculation.
Absolutely. But that's going to wrap it up for us here today at TCT. My name is Gavin Campbell. That's Tyson Snyder. This is Cale Fleming. Really hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Go ahead and hit that big red button. Go ahead and hit the bell icon so you don't miss a beat.
One last thing, too. If you guys have Twitter, go ahead and follow us on our Twitter page. I put polls up there pretty regularly. We try to tweet out some breaking news. Our Twitter is @sports_twin. Go ahead and give us a follow on there as well.
And we'll see you next week.
Peace.